as well as anybody else present.
Can I ask a question about how does the money that comes through the Chamber of Commerce to fund when the French come here, how does that get to this committee?
Somebody at the City Hall decides that we get whatever portion we get. I don't know how that works.
And it's a portion of the proceeds from the craft show?
Correct.
From what they take in from the vendors?
Correct. That is my understanding. And that's whatever agreement the city has with the chamber on that event, and I don't know the details.
I did look up this information on traveling as a disabled individual, and I'm fairly mobile compared to a lot of people who are disabled, but my concern is that this is meeting my inquiry about someone with a disability, whether it's visible vision disability, hearing, more mobility issues than what I have, is meeting a lot of resistance. And I find that hard to believe because this is an official committee of the local government.
Who are you getting resistance from?
Well,
who are you getting resistance from?
From the French, your last letter said that
I have no control over what they can and cannot accommodate. I can only control what this committee does and what we can do in the United States.
Right, but it sort of astounds me that with as many disabled people in the world as what they are, and with as many concerns as the disabled people have had about non-inclusion in a lot of different areas.
But you're thinking United States, Robin. France is an entirely different country. In France, there is no law that a building like the state capitol, the Limburg House, historic buildings, in France, you do not have to make them ADA accessible.
Well, but there are a lot of disabled people in France.
I know, there are. But it's just a different attitude. It's a different culture. I don't know how far to take it with them because that is their decision on what they can and cannot accommodate.
But see, I even suggested staying in a different facility on my own with my own money and finding my own accessible accommodations to be able to participate to whatever extent I could with the group as much as possible. And that was even not well received.
Because
I asked about a bicycle.
The purpose of the relationship is to build friendship. That is the purpose of this committee, is a friendship.
Right,
How do you build a friendship if you're not with the people that you need to be with?
A friendship would also include understanding where someone's at with their physical condition.
Yes. As far as staying in the place, you told me about your sleep apnea. They are fine with placing you in a home.
Right.
That was not an issue.
But I find it hard to believe, and so do a number of my friends, that you can't go most everywhere on a bus, on a subway, whatever they have over there for transportation. My guess is there are an astounding number of disabled people there. And I even suggested renting or borrowing a bicycle.
Yes.
Bringing my own three-wheel scooter, just something to give me a little assist. And if it isn't addressed now, going forward, I'm going to suggest that this will need to get fixed because we're talking about hosting them. And what if the reverse were true and say, for instance, one of their committee people wanted to come here with a great disability, would this committee be willing to accommodate that? I would hope so.
Yes, because we have the means to do so. This country is set up to do so. We have access to buses that have handicapped accessible lifts.
They do as well.
Alex didn't seem to think that they had it. That is what, I only know what the committee tells me, and the committee has the same discussions like we have here. I cannot go and tell them how to run their committee, Robin.
No, I'm not suggesting you do that. But I think it should be a concern of every person that's on this committee or involved with this group at all to accommodate to a reasonable extent, whether it's here in this country with their exchange coming here or going there. And especially because we're talking about involving city funding. My whole life has all been about inclusion, making sure that no one's left behind. And I'm not asking just for my sake. I'm asking for other people.
I understand.
It's troubling that our mayor has physical disabilities, and she made the comment at the last meeting that she doesn't go on this trip because of the fact it's too rigorous of an event for her. If she really wanted to go, why wouldn't she be able to go? I don't think there should be an obstacle because one is handicapped or challenged in some way. I just don't think that's fair or right. And I'm asking this committee to seriously consider this, not for my sake, but for everyone else that may want to do this someday. And I would I would hope that there'd be a discussion with the French friends that all of you have developed, that you would encourage them to encourage their people to want to include, if there are people who have a slight visual impairment or hearing impairment or any other kind of impairment, to want to be part of this group. It's a
That's
great
all
opportunity.
I can do, Robin, is all I can do is plant the seed and encourage. I cannot change France. I cannot change that committee. I cannot change the way they run their program. It is their program. I can only be in control of what we have here. I can ask the questions. And I have been asking the questions for you. And I know it's not just with you in mind. But I cannot change the way they run their program.
Well, I'm not suggesting that. It just seems odd that this is a friendship connection, that disabled people aren't part of this discussion and planning. It seems like actually poor planning to not have tackled this issue in the past with such a we've as a nation we've made such strides in accommodating everyone.
It's 2 nations, 2 cultures, 2 different attitudes.
Well, I'm just talking about this committee now.
But again, I only have concerns about what I can control here.
I know.
I can ask the questions, I can ask them to consider it, I can ask them to adapt for future trips. I think they are too far in their planning, their spending, their fundraising to make major changes now.
Well, to accommodate me, it wouldn't involve any financial on their part at all.
Yes, it would, because they will feel responsible for you. That is not the way the program works, is for you to come as their guest. You are their guest. They are responsible for you. They are mother hens. They guard and protect you. Trust me. Bernard got his legs stuck in a subway door, herding us like cats to make sure we all got on that bus. But my experience in France is it's a lot of stairs. There are not escalators. There are not even streets. It's cobblestone. You've got an ancient city built on top, or a medieval city built on top of an ancient city which the modern city resides in. It's a lot of physical structures that they're dealing with. Alexander admitted that the office in Le Bourget, the subway station where they connect, so if you were to bring your scooter, you couldn't get it onto the subway because the lift facility, he often sees it broken because it's not a priority in their government to fix it. That is beyond the committee to make that change. As for the bicycle, my experience in the streets of Paris, the cars drive fast, they drive very close together, and it's a safety concern for anybody riding that bicycle with the group on what would happen if. Vic went head over heels on a bicycle the last time we were in France. Vic had a very bad time in France. He kept getting injured. And they felt so terrible about that, and he was just on a pleasure ride in a park somewhere with his host family. So they are thinking about these things. It's going to take time, and it's a much bigger issue than this committee and their committee, because they're dealing with these obstacles that their country has decided is not a priority. And there's nothing I can do about that, because I live in the United States, I live in Minnesota. If anybody who has any disabilities wants to be involved when they come here in 2013, I will do my best to make sure that everything is accessible, from hiring a sign language interpreter to making sure Braille is available, or whatever needs to be done that is available for me to get. But in France, it's not like that, Robin. It's not.
Then they aren't as friendly as you crack them up to be. And they're not as good of a mother hen as what you crack them up to be, if that's the case.
They are, but the venue is not.
Yeah. That's, you know, I think
There
that's
are companies that handle this kind of thing.
Well, Robin, I think Melissa's answered your question, spades. I think if you have concerns to go deeper than that, like we've discussed with the bylaws, the final word is from City Council, and perhaps these are issues that the City Council should hear. Because, we're essentially a fundraising committee. We're a committee of unpaid volunteers whose job is to fundraise for when the French come here and do whatever planning we can for our trip over there. Some of what issues you're bringing up here go beyond what we can do as a committee and start talking about City Council issues. I think you have very legitimate concerns, and I think you should present those to City Council. They're the elected members that answer these questions. They're the final say.
The city is the one who can ask the city of Le Bourget to step it up. I can ask my committee because they're volunteers the same way we are.
Well, I think the city should take into consideration everyone
Then you
and
can ask
everyone's
city
needs,
council
so
to
that
write a
no
letter
one
to
is
the
left
city of Le
behind.
Bourget and see if that helps. But my honest feeling, Robin, is that I don't know how much is going to change before June. This is a longer road ahead.
And the other side of the coin too is that change happens through relationship, not through dictating that this must happen. And you know, I mean, I think about our daughter. We have a handicapped daughter who, if we're going to go on a trip like this, it's going to be in the next 4 years, or we can't take her because she will be in a wheelchair. You know, and that's just the reality. I've been to Europe a few times. You know, it's not there. I'd love to say that in, you know, well, maybe we can go in 8 or 12 years and bring our daughter along and she will be in a wheelchair and be fine. You know, that's not the expectation. But I would feel remiss if I said, you've got to change because I really want to go with my daughter, you know, when she's in a wheelchair. You know, that's not relationship, that's dictating change because it's a perceived benefit for everyone. You know, I mean, that's my point of view, is that things happen through relationship and through process, not through just saying. And I understand that, you know, this is a city, and if it happens at that level, it happens at that level. But for it to happen at the committee level, pulls away from the idea of relationship and more dictating. You know, just like, I mean, going through that process of accommodating for our daughter, it's better to have in a relationship rather than us going to school and say, you have to do this. How can we work together? How can we build this? You know, and so you know, you're right. It's not really our committee goal. Seems like it's friendship, not egalitarian issues or legal.
Disabled people didn't get their rights because of friendships. They got their rights because of standing up for their rights and making sure that they were not excluded.
And they got which is through the proper legal channels.
Through the legal channel. This is not a legal channel. This is, you know.
And this is why I wanted to meet
I
with
wasn't
Dan.
suggesting this was the legal
No.
channel.
Well,
What
I
I
know,
was
but-
suggesting was, in that this is a friendship exchange, it's all about friendship with another country. I think this committee is making a big mistake by not understanding the interest of at least one individual who'd like to be included that's meeting obstacles. And I've met obstacles at every email I've sent to you, and every time we've talked at these meetings.
I have done my best, Robin.
Well, I'm not saying to you that you haven't. I'm just saying I think that this committee needs to make an effort, because there are a lot of other people that go on these trips that are older, and they will have challenges whether they're here or over there. And
Most
I think
of the
it's
committee in France is older, Robin. The youngest person on the committee is Alexander, and he's 22. The average median age of the committee members are your age or 10 years older than you. I am horrible at guessing ages, but would you agree, you two know the committee, that it is an older group in France?
Absolutely.
My 77-year-old grandmother came last time.
And what happens if she gets tired and can't go up a flight of stairs, or has to take a little time
She
to recuperate?
analyzed that risk on where her health was, her ability. I explained the challenges she would face, and she decided she could make those challenges. And that's all we could do. If she got tired as we went along, yes, we stopped, we waited. But she made those knowing going in of what she was facing and decided ahead of time, yes or no, can I do this? And she decided she could, and she did not have any trouble. Others who went along, Jan went along, and she overestimated her ability. Didn't quite process what we told her about how much walking. She brought horseshoes with her, and she really suffered. And she missed out on a lot of things. And she was a constant source of worry to her French, because it was watching where she was, waiting for her to catch up. And it's Corey's mother-in-law. So she missed out on things which changed the relationship for her. And she was not able to participate in things, and she did not get the depth of what they were trying to do with us. So it's not that they're not accommodating. They are trying to meet where we're at and where their country is at and what will and will not work. I trust them that they know what works in their country. I've been there for a total of 4 weeks in a couple different trips. I don't presume to know anything about France because I don't live there. I don't know the day-to-day challenges. I only know what I observe and what they tell me that they can and cannot handle. I will definitely continue to ask them to consider this for future exchanges on what ways can we be more accessible, that there is an interest in our community to have this exchange be more accessible. That is where it stops with me. It has to go through higher channels. It has to be through the city to the city,
and if you
and it has to be the nation of
approach it
France.
Now, then as as they're doing this trip with people coming, they can be looking and going, okay, you know, this bus was available. Maybe if we got a reservation in a year ahead, we would be able to accommodate. You know, they'd be able to.
They can start looking.
Like our folder with the.
Yep, and planning.
Yeah, with the Christmas
So-
stuff. It's like, the longer you have a chance to look at it, sometimes I don't.
Well, it is 9:10, so we are over my limit of an hour long.